preface the entirety of this video and what I'm about to say by saying I feel absolutely no self pity for myself because I am putting myself in this position, and it is the difficulties of the path that I have put myself on. But I think they're important to reflect on and to talk about if anybody is considering. And I think they'll someday be interesting to reflect on. But for context, I've been running a development company, a software development company, for the better part of the last 2.5 years. I've been trying to build businesses for a long time. And I never really understood why it was so hard until I really stuck to one business. And actually, it was when I made the most progress that I felt it was the hardest. No, no kidding. And this morning I woke up and it felt horrible. I started by doing some work that I've been putting off for a little while, specifically around some stuff on Twitter that I wanted to get started with. And I had started this before, and then I stopped for years. I let it go, and I wanted to get back. And I was just completely overthinking it. I was thinking about, oh, how am I going to make a strategy? How am I going to approach it? Because you don't want to do the same thing everybody else is doing. You got to be different, but at the same time, you got to do something that works. What works? You don't know. You can't decide. Where do you and this goes beyond just the particular thing that I was thinking about, right? It might go into the marketing strategy where you have limited time and limited resources in a business. You do not have unlimited tries at this. And especially like when you are running a one-man show and you're just by yourself, you try something for 3 months, you try another thing for 3 months. The only thing you're losing is time. And time definitely it's a super valuable resource. But then when you've got a business, you've also got burn rate. And that means you cannot pay your employees for so long. So you have to make the right decisions about where to put that money and where to put that time, because otherwise you will run out of money. That is how business works. And it feels lonely and shit often. And the ups and downs happen fast. If like 2 days ago, I was filming myself and I'm incredibly excited about London and all these things. But a few days later, you can also feel incredibly stressed out because some things are not panning out. Like you are alone and you are in your head. You are alone because there oftentimes the reason people say it is lonely is because you do not have anybody to reach out to, and that is by design. Your family and or friends will not really understand. Like I have a girlfriend, but I can't, like there are certain things which I cannot go to anybody else about. And that is because of the nature of the thing. It is not about the business strategy. That is not what's hard. The hard part is when you just can't make your mind shut up. Like I know that I was struggling with this morning, just totally overthinking. I could not, like I tried to kind of finish up the work. I was completely just overthinking everything and every last decision. I was questioning, and it was horrible. Like my mind was just going at 500 miles an hour, spinning completely out of control. And I couldn't make it shut up. And then I was on the way to the gym, and I even found myself like I was putting on my shoes and I just sat in silence for a bit, tried to clear my head. Not 5 minutes later, I went down the elevator, and again I find myself like in this like horrible place of how am I gonna optimize for this, that, and the other. And at some point, too much over strategizing is going to distract you from the execution. Like it's like going to the gym and trying to think about the best weight and the best program and the best rep range and the best range of motion and optimize every damn little last thing. The reality is that is like you cannot do all of that the first time you go in. Even after a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, like there's still things you are slowly improving on. That you don't build Rome in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day, or whatever it is. And you just have to push the weight. That is how you grow. Right? You just have to show up and push the weight. There's not much more to it. It's not fucking rocket science. It's just perfection is created by imperfect action. I don't know who the fuck came up with that, but it's genius. It's that you know that to be true, but there are days where you will struggle with that, or at least I do. I wrote some thoughts right after I went to the gym. The gym was really nice. It just helped me clear my head. And that was probably the best decision I made, because otherwise I would have been eaten alive by the anxiety the entire day. And the worst thing is, the biggest struggle is the fact that you are alone in a lot of this. And there's no amount of information or advice that you can get from somebody else that will do the damn thing for you. There are certain actions you must take to get your place out of to get yourself out of a certain place, which only you can take. There is nobody else who can convince you of that thing. And oftentimes, one of the hardest things in business is the fact that you have to make decisions that you do not know the answer for, and you will not know for months and years. You will not know. Fundamentally, like, you are making a massive bet, and that is scary. And that is why, like, the line between a visionary and a delusional person is non-existent. They are the same. It's just one happens to be right and the other one isn't. But both made a bet. One was wrong, one was right. The bigger the bet, the more delusional or the more visionary they're perceived to be. And that is an observation I've had, and like, I've been reflecting on that. And you don't have to be a visionary to build a business, because there's plenty of boring businesses. But you have to make you still do that at a smaller scale, because you have to make decisions that only you are making a bet. And at the end of the day, there is nobody else who can take that burden for you. That burden is on you as long as it is your business. Even if you get advice from somebody, ultimately the outcome of the bet is on you, and you are the one who takes the advice. And so you are still making that decision. If you are, well, it's my belief that if you're a good business person, you take that bet actively, not passively. It's a very important one. And these bets, there is nobody who can help you through that. That is why it is lonely. And oftentimes it's even more lonely because you don't have people to bounce it with. And that's okay. And that's the reality of it. I take some inspiration in this video from Kobe Bryant's post that he did after he tore his Achilles or something along these lines. And he said, it's this really famous Facebook post, and I absolutely love it. He complains, has father time defeated me? Is it time to put away my NBA career? Is it all over? How am I meant to be 35 with a torn Achilles and come back better? And what's the point of social media if it's not to vent, if it's not to bring it to you real? I'm like, forgive me for the ranting, forgive me for the negativity. But at the end of the day, what's the point? But after all of this, it's 2 a.m. My head is spinning from the pain meds. My toe is dead. My foot is dead weight, something like this, because he's in the hospital. And it's like, I want to bring it to you real, no filter, no edits. Sometimes you feel like this, and then the real perspective sets in, which is you have to go back with the same tenacity as before. And on an objective level, I can recognize a lot of things. I can recognize things are all right, but sometimes it's just you have a lot of anxiety as a business owner. For example, there are some deals on the line that I have right now, and sometimes you hold your breath with them, or you're trying to figure out, or you have no idea when your next deal comes from, or it's just humans are not rational. And so sometimes that's where the kind of the Stoic beliefs come from, right? Which is like the biggest and I think most effective remedy against that is you just have to go and push the weight. You just have to go and do the thing, do the actions. And the emotions are incredibly distracting and sometimes incredibly overwhelming. And you have to learn your mechanisms to get out of that box. For me today, that was going to the gym and listening to ridiculously loud music that let me focus on nothing else. And that helped. It's not like, and sometimes things don't work out, and that there's nothing worse than feeling like you made a bet and it didn't work, and you spent 6, 9, 12 months on it, and you feel like you're back at square one. You feel like the time is wasted, and the time is not wasted because you did learn things, right? You did learn very valuable lessons along the way, but it does not feel like that in that moment. There are moments where you do not see that, and to be reminded that you did learn and things like that is great, but oftentimes you will not be. And you will just sit through it. And that is a big part of the struggle. It is not the physical undertaking. It is the mental undertaking of the stress that it's like, I find that I have generally a pretty large appetite for responsibility. I enjoy it. But it is the undertaking of that stress and the uncertainty, which is the biggest burden. Uncertainty weighs us down a lot. And particularly, I made a tweet about this earlier, but loss aversion, humans are terrified of loss. And that is in terms of when people say FOMO, fear of missing out is just what? It's loss aversion, right? It's me not wanting to miss out on something. I do not want to lose something. If you like, there's some experiment that shows like humans would way rather not lose something than gain something, even if gaining is like larger in value. Like naturally, we have a huge aversion to loss. And that is, when you say just in case, let me keep this thing, or when you say I'm having FOMO, that is loss aversion speaking. And it is huge as a human. And that also that's part of the thing that when you're figuring it out. And what I mean, like, I've been running this business, but like I know that I'm a tiny business at the end of the day. Like in the grand scheme of things, when you look at other businesses, like it's nothing, right? It's nothing. It's a tiny speck of dust. And you think about how you want to climb that mountain, but there's so many ways. And should I climb this mountain or that one? And which one's bigger? And you can't see. You don't have the information. Like you don't know what path is best. That causes analysis paralysis. It's a very normal situation. And for me, it frustrates me because it inhibits action a lot of the time. And that is a frustrating feeling. There's all kinds of these struggles. These are the bigger ones, in my opinion, in my experience. It is not the physical act. It is the fact that you have nobody to rely on except yourself. There's nobody who is going to fix my head spinning out of control this morning. There's nobody else who would be able to take those actions or to like take that initiative. Like, and there's nobody in my immediate vicinity who I can contact about those things. That is the reality. And that's okay. Like, this is the game I choose to play. There's a saying in Portuguese, and I love it, and I stick to it. Well, I keep it close to heart, but quem corre por gosto não cansa. Quem corre por gosto não cansa essentially means he who runs for fun doesn't get tired. If you are choosing to run, then it's because you're not getting tired. Otherwise, you can just stop and walk. And that's the way that I see things. I feel zero pity for myself. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to acknowledge the fact that sometimes things are hard. And in the first year especially, I really only stuck through it because I spent so many years from 13 to 17 where I bounced around. I kept bouncing between different businesses and ideas because of, I never really stuck to something. And so when I was like, okay, at some point I have to stop bouncing and just do one thing for a while. And I did that. And it was only because I was like, I'm a very stubborn person. I can be a very stubborn person. It was only because I was so stubborn that I stuck through probably some of the harder times I've had in business. And it like, in some ways it gets easier because you get familiar with the discomfort, but in other ways it doesn't, because the discomfort is still discomfort. By definition, it is uncomfortable. That is the entire point. You just get used to it. You recognize it. At least that's how I felt. Like when I see myself now, it's easier because I know this pain and I'm more familiar with it. And over time, I think if you're an effective problem solver, you will learn what triggers and things can get you out of that place faster. What are the distractions that you need? What are the things that flip a switch and put you back in the right space? For me, I was able to turn it around by going to the gym. And the rest of the day became actually really productive. And I think I've had one of the most productive days this week, and that was really, really nice. But it was only because over time I have learned the triggers that help me to get out of that space and to click back into gear. And I am more familiar with this kind of difficulty and things like that. But when you start out and when you are facing that difficulty for the first time, man, it feels shit. When you are facing the feeling of being back at square one after 1 year, 2 years, that is horrendous. It is one of the most discouraging feelings in the world. Even though on an objective level, when the reality sets in, when the real perspective comes back, you know that you've made progress. You know that you've learned. But there are times where that doesn't set in immediately, and that is part of the game. And yeah, I wrote that little rant this morning, and obviously now it's the end of the day. It's like midnight. I had some calls, and my mind's been pretty clear. I've just been working. It's been super productive. Like that, like I'm completely over it now. But it comes and goes, and it comes and goes fast. Easy come, easy go kind of thing, or at least that's me. Maybe I'm just. It just. It's higher highs, lower lows, right? The amplitude is bigger. There is more room for that going up and down. And I think over time you learn to weather the storm, to balance your ship, and to stay more grounded. And like the time that it takes me now between like when I quickly identify that my head is spinning out of control and that I will like back myself into a corner where I'm just overthinking and doing nothing useful, is really like that is genuinely a waste of time. If you think scrolling social media is a waste of time, overthinking is even worse. Because it now there's so many reasons, but that's a story for another time. But my time between identifying that headspace and doing something about it is shortening, and I hope to keep it shorter and shorter every single time. Um, but I don't think it ever goes away. I don't think you should wait for the day that you never get that feeling again, because it doesn't really come as long as you're scaling up. But that's just part of like the climb, I suppose. Um, yeah. Anyway, today was a really productive day, I think, because I finally moved some important things forward, and I'm gonna double down on them tomorrow. And I'm hiring a new accountant. Maybe I'm very excited about it because my accounting has been a bit of a headache, and it's been on my to-do list. And on Monday, they're sending me a quote and a proposal, and I never thought I'd utter the words that I'm excited for accounting or excited for an accountant, a new accountant, but I am. So that's a little fun little, I guess, thing from today. I had a really, really nice chat. But yeah, good conversations also tend to help me out of that space, but sometimes those are not immediately available and you cannot rely on them. So yeah, anyway, good day. Good, very good work done.